Hey everyone, Cole here, and in this video, we're going to walk through my favorite automation system that you are going to love using, and that is going to automate your cold outreach at scale for your business for just about every single industry you can think of. Using this, I consistently are getting another 10 to 20 meetings every single month using this system. We haven't even scaled it out a bunch. A lot of my clients have seen amazing results even just in the first few weeks putting it together. So if you're looking to make more money, scale your business, improve your automational processes, and have some systems that are just going to work for you, stick around for the video, watch the full thing, get the full details. Don't worry, if you stay around for the whole thing, you're going to get access to all of the documents and the guides and the files that we're using. So that way you can go and do it yourself, and that way you're just following along. So by the way, before we get too deep into this, if you could like and subscribe, your love and attention and comments and questions are very, very helpful. And all of those are going to make me do a better job when it comes to this. So moving forward, I've said enough. What we're going to talk through is a 4-step automation process for doing cold outreach. And what's really important here is we have 4 automations here running for a specific reason. And let's walk through each one very quickly, and then we'll dive into each of them, how we're going to build them, so on and so forth. So what we have here, before we actually even show these automations, is what's important is we've put together a Chrome extension. This Chrome extension is going to be the central starting point for you or your sales rep. And the reason we want this versus them looking at a lead list or looking at some random platform is, well, often the sales rep's going to be building too many lists, or they're going to be distracted and they're not going to just do things. So we want to make this as easy as possible for them to do stuff. So we then have this little section up here is like choose our limbless campaign, where when we hit this, it refreshes and then it shows the campaigns active within our cold outreach system. So in this example, we've got 3 that are actively running. And then if you see here, we have 3 that are actively running and 1 that's not been built yet. So now what we're going to do is look up the location where we want to scrape. So for this example, let's just say it was like LA. How many do we want to scrape? 50 places. What is our search? Well, we are searching hotels. So we're going to put in hotels. Then we'll click run. And then that's going to actually fire this automation. But what is this one right here? Pull limbless campaigns. That is simply doing this action right here. So when we click this button, it goes through this automation and goes and pulls a webhook. So it makes a webhook request and goes, hey, I need to know what limbless campaigns we have. Okay, here's all the limbless campaigns. Let's filter out the inactive and show you the ones that are currently running or actually there, right? The ones that haven't been archived. And that's important because, if you are building out a bunch of different campaigns with your team, you need a process in place that only shows the active campaigns that you guys are actively running. Because if I just build this for one campaign, you're going to have to duplicate all of this every single time you go and start a new campaign, which is just not scalable. It's not realistic, right? So that's what this one helps with. Then we have the Chrome extension to Appify. This one, similarly, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's going to do the following. It's going to then get the output from here, as well as a bunch of other questions that we've actually hidden from the sales rep, because it's just not required for them to have to answer in all of those fields. You'll see that we actually pass a bunch of different fields in this. Now, this isn't the pretty way of seeing this, but you'll see we pass a bunch of different fields. But you get that campaign name, the web results. Hey, do we want these? We want it in Hawthorne, California. Here's how many we want to search. So we're passing that data. We're sending a response back to the webhook, so it knows, hey, I did get your info. Totally fine. By doing this, it prevents it from airing out. We then clean it up, so that way it's really easy for us to read what the heck it's actually sending. And then we push it into Appify. Because Appify, a specific actor within Appify, and mind you, Appify is just a aggregator of typically a bunch of scraping ecosystems or tools that people have built that you can pay to use. And it just makes build outs way faster and easier. And so takes this JSON, pushes it into Appify, lets that thing run, and then we get a logged output, right? And our results log. So that way we know what we sent, when we sent it. If we have any issues, we have some clarity of understanding, right? So that's what these two do. Now we're going to go into the actual nitty gritties of what these ones do and building it out ourselves. But it's important for us to walk through the full process before I just show you the here you got to build this, because you need to understand how and why we're doing these things. So that way, if you have changes or unique variations to a different tool that you're using versus what I'm showing in the example, that you're going to actually be able to make the according adjustment. So from there, we go from here to here, and then it goes to the scrape, enrichment, and then add to limb list. So if we've modularized it, we don't want to have like 500 pieces going in an automation because it makes it slower. It makes the process like very inefficient, so on and so forth. So what does this one do? Well, what it does is after Appify's done its whole thing where it's been running, we're now going to get those results. We're going to see if we've already ran this before. We're going to get all the data from it. We then search and see if we've already got like that company information in here. If it is, we're going to ignore it. We don't want to just pass it through, right? Then we're going to go and look at our email finder, which is just an email finding platform. If you're using Apollo or any of these other things, you probably could just use that connection just for this. And then this is just helping us to parse it out to cleanly pull it out. Because what this does is it gives us all of them in a giant bundle. And we want to make sure that we are able to add each one to its own row, as you see here. Each one's a different person, but we need to make sure that it is aligned to the correct company and all of their details. So that's what this one does. We're going to discard changes. And then this last one here actually goes through and starts some of the cool stuff, extra little personalizations. And all it's doing is it's looking for new rows, right? Every single time there's a new row added, it's then going, all right, have I added all the info? No? Great. What we're going to do is we're going to scrape their website, clean up that information, further clean up, wait for a second because you can run this too fast and you'll actually have an error here with the icebreaker. Clean up the data, add it to our Google Sheet, just so we have some tracking, and then we put it into the corresponding campaign. So that's the high level. So that's everything. That's what it is. That's how it works. Now, how do we build it, right? Great question. So how do we do this? Well, if we're going to do this, what we actually have to start with before we do any of the goodies is we need to work on our Chrome extension first. If I'm being honest, I'm going to save you guys time. I'm going to put a Chrome extension down in the section below. In fact, get access to my AI Vault. I'm just going to put all of this into it. It'll be easier. There'll be a link down in the description. And in the AI Vault, you're going to get like 20 plus, maybe 15 plus automations that we've also done and built and put together. And so you'll look for this one and it'll be in there and you're going to get all 4 of the modules as well as the Chrome extension inside of it. And so that way you'll be able to just upload your own Chrome extension. The big difference you're going to get from what you see here is I'm going to add in 2 fields, one for you to put in your own ID for your Limlist campaign. Say you're using Limlist, the webhook specifically to this pull Limlist campaigns, and then another one for the Chrome extension one. So all you'll do is that you'll just input the corresponding webhooks there, and it'll be clean and easy to go. So that way, every time you run this, both of these can still properly run. That makes sense. What we have to do first is we need to have our Chrome extension be able to push data to this webhook. We need to then get information from Limlist. We need to parse that data and then send back a response that, hey, I did properly get your info. So how do we do that? Well, how we're doing this is, let me actually clean this up. I'm going to pull the data here into Visual Studio Code. Let's go here, open folder, downloads, select folder. There we go. Yes, I trust. So here it is. I got to rotate all of this here. But what we have here is the Chrome extension. So here's Lead Search Runner. Here is their API. Here's the campaign API key that we're trying to pull from. So that we're like validating that we can actually push data to it. And then we have the manifest. So here we have our permissions. So here, right here, is fetching campaigns. So this fetch campaigns from make webhook is looking at the following webhook, which if we come over here, it is this exact webhook. When a person hits this button, it runs this set of code and it goes, hey, I need to fetch whatever's coming from this webhook, right? And then I want to return whatever came from that webhook. So that's where we're doing it here. So it's fetching. All we're doing here is we're going and hitting an add module. We're hitting webhooks. Triggers when a custom webhook receives data. We're adding it, right? We're giving it a name, right? It's coming from this list here. So all that does is it creates the URL we can send data to. We then use limlist. We're going to go and hit add a module. Limlist. We're going to come on down here to list all campaigns. And what that does is it gives us just the amount of campaigns that you want to pull. Let me delete this. Yes. Okay. And then we have the following. So we want to go through and we want to pull campaigns, ID, and name. Then from there, we're going to push the response. So what are we doing? Well, we're pushing this array. Well, this array is the iterator, right? So it's saying, hey, here's the ID and here's the name of that campaign that I want to push data into. And so all that does is then gives us an outputted list of all of these, right? So that's what that does. So you get the full list, you then parse it. We're cleaning it up. We're putting it into a bundle and it's going to be considered an array. We then iterate on it and we push it back into the webhook. And that gives us that visual list, right? So that's how this works. Well, this Chrome extension, again, follows the same general principles. If we scroll further on down here, we have it here. Here it is. What it's doing is it is going to fetch, and it doesn't need anything here because it's not having to pull from an API. Well, it doesn't need, the bearer and your usual API key because we're just connecting right to, come on. There we go. Because it's connecting right to this webhook, which is why we have this response immediately after. So what happened is we open this webhook up. We're just getting the one push, data push that they're sending, right? And then we're just saying, hey, I got this. Status equals accepted. That means we got a 200 code. We're a positive. I did receive this. There's no errors, right? And so in there, what we're doing here is all of the info that we're actually passing. And I'm going to show you where I got that because how this works is we actually find this through Apify. And in Apify, there's a bunch of different scrapers. But what we used is we used Google Maps scraper for this instance. And so in here, you'll see that we have JSON. Well, why is it that we're passing it this way and not this or a different way, right, to push this data? Well, the reason we use JSON is it's super easy to understand. Once you start looking at it, it literally tells you what it is. This is what they searched. What is it that we want? Well, we want websites. Yeah, with a website, so on and so forth. So it just makes processing and understanding this information really easy for humans as well as for AI. The cleaner it is for AI and our automations like this, the better and smoother it is. JSON's just been around forever, so it really understands JSON very well. So this is the set format that this Google Maps scraper uses. So what we did is we took this and we hid 90% of the fields because we don't want our sales reps accidentally inputting the wrong answers here and us not getting data. We want them to only have to do 3 things. What is the location? How many do you want to scrape? And what is the general search term? Just so you have some stability there of controlling it. Run this information and then store those outputs here. And so that's exactly what this is doing. So what's happening is we're pushing in the form data. We're responding back to that webhook saying, hey, yeah, I'm good. It's a status 200. I accept the information you sent. We then go, I'm going to clean what you gave me because again, we passed in JSON. So we come here, we hit add a module. We can just come in and say JSON, and you go in and hit parse JSON. And what this does is it gives you the ability to separate and clean up the string. What's great with that is you can now come in here and you'll see that we actually pasted in. We did a hard code of a lot of this because, well, the client's going to want all of this formatting, right? There's a certain amount of data that they want and a lot of other data that they don't want. So why would you want to pay for scraping it if you don't need it, right? So we put in the key ones, which are the ones that we are automatically filling in, and we're making sure that we've properly passed it through. And so that's what we've done here. So we've put in the location, found the location, max crawl places per search, found that, and then search strings array, which is right here. What did they search? Maybe they searched for apartments, luxury apartments, high-rise apartments, and you want to be able to have these in the list. So that's what this is used for. So what this then does is it runs, it gets sent here. Once it's been able to be marked as a status of scraping finished, it's also, well, this is going to run, and then we're going to log that data, right? We're going to log, hey, we pushed all of the following, and this is all the general details of the Apify module. So that way we can recall it if there is an error or there are issues or we need to validate the leads that we got, right? So that's what this one does. We're going to discard these changes. So to clarify, that Apify module runs. Once it's done, the following is going to occur. It's going to watch actor runs. So you see what this does? It's watching when an actor runs. And then once it's been completed, it automatically goes, oh, this is complete. What I'm going to go through do now is search, have I ran this data? Does it exist in our log? Because we want to make sure, we want to have a general cross-check that we're actually looking at the correct one, because we don't want to accidentally have it go up here and try to reprocess data we've already pushed, right? That's a waste. We end up overspending on operations. So we need this to be as efficient as possible. So we use this, it searches and it validates if we've done this. We have a basic filter here where if the bundle is equal to 1, then we say, hey, that exists. Let's go through and pull that forward. So let's get that data. So if we do have that, we pull in the data set ID. Now, what is the data set ID? Well, if you go to Google Maps Scraper and we go and look at an individual run in here, and then we go to storage, I believe. Yeah, under storage. What happens is every single run that you do for a set of scraped data gets its own unique ID, right? Just like if you look at like an Excel sheet, there's row 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. That's a unique identifier for each row. That's what this is, right? It's a unique identifier for a set of data, right? So that's the data set ID. And that's exactly what that is. So what we're looking at here is we have the data set ID that we're then pulling. And then we're saying, hey, I want to get all the data. I want to get everything that's in there. And I need it to be formatted in JSON. Again, consistency in your data is key. So if that occurs, then we go through and look for the following. We want to then first see, do we have that company? Does the website exist? We're like going through and doing multiple validators. If it exists, we want to validate whether or not we want to continue adding, right? We don't want to be putting in duplicate names. And so that's what this whole set of filters is here for. What these ones do is checks, does it contain all of this info? If it does and contains in lim list, which means it's already ran all the way through, like the individual contact has ran all the way through, then we don't want to push that through, right? Like whatever that data line item is, we don't want to pass that person and log their data. But if we go all the way through and we see that, oh, nope, we've not added Karma, right? And they're blank, we're going to go through, or I should say for the company, we're going to say, oh, okay. Well, we're going to now check to see if we can find that person's name. So I jumped ahead there for a sec, but essentially we're like looking to see, does that company exist? If the company doesn't exist, then we go through and start looking for emails. Now you can again use any email platform. I really like an email finder. It's pretty cheap. You probably spend like 30 bucks a month in there. All it works is you go on the website, you sign up, you'll go and find your API key, and you'll do it here. When you're ready, we'll come in here and we'll hit search for company's emails. We just add it to here, right? And let's say you don't have your login just yet. You're going to hit add. You're just going to paste your API key here. So we just come in, we drop this in. Now, what is this looking at? Again, this is looking at the website right here. Here it is, the website. It is looking at this website because we're looking at the company's URL. And then we're using that to go, hey, does the URL exist? If it does, fantastic. What we're going to do now is parse the emails because sometimes there's a ton of them. If you want all of the emails, get all of the emails. But what I found for the team is it's between 4 and 6. We shifted down recently to top 4. We look at the top 4. We pull the top 4 emails, and then we pass those 4 contacts into here all the way through. And so by doing that, we're creating a new line of data. And here, as you see here, these ones all need to be processed. And we've not had the automation run. We just waited on this so I could show you in an example. So that's what that automation does. And then it goes through and passes all of this data matching the corresponding columns, right? So website, phone number, neighborhood, right? So on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward. In here, you click add row, you just import the sheet, and then you correspond with the correct name and data set, right, that you're passing through. So in here, again, we're going back to, this Apify module, and we're able to pass through that individual bundle's information all the way through. And then we come down here and do the following for contact name. So what this function here does, first, split value, right? And then the @ sign and close bracket. So what this is saying is like, hey, I want to get the first value that we can find before the @ sign. And I want to just dump that in as the contact name. So like if a lead's first name is Emam, right? Which is a unique example here. Emam, that is what we're pulling. So we are pulling EMMAM, right? And we are pasting it as the first name value. If we didn't use this split function here, it would just take the entire email and it would pass it through because it wouldn't know what it's looking for, right? But because we're looking at the value from this iterator, right, which is the email that we found for a person, we're trying to pull the closest thing we can get to a first name because we're not doing the version that always guarantees a clear first name, but we guarantee at least an email to a business, to a person that works at that business, right? And then we pass in that unique value for the email itself. And then you just go through and pass in this data. So once this is done, right, we're going to save that. So how this works is, again, we walked through this once before, but just to make sure we're on the same page, is every time a new row comes through, this triggers. And it's like, oh my gosh, a new row came in. I need to see what's there. So it's going to go in. It's going to pull the row from that sheet. So this one here goes through and looks to see if the following are true. We have a filter here after this. Well, the filter here prevents us from using operations. And the goal of that is to prevent us from wasting a bunch of uses, right? If you didn't have this filter in play, it's going to sit here and process every single row of your Google Sheet and ends up being hyper inefficient. So what we do is we look for a handful of details. We want to see, hey, does the campaign ID exist, right? Or is it exist in here, right? Then do we want to see if we have the validator that we've already passed it into Limlist, which is what we'll be talking about doing right here. Because once the data has been passed into Limlist, we mark with it's in Limlist, mark this as true, right? So we have that filter. What this does is helps to prevent us from passing over or passing through context that we've already worked through once before. Like we don't need to waste another operation on it. We just want to make sure that we validate it and then push that individual contact that needs actual enrichment through. And then we validate what that individual row number is. What that just helps for us is we found that it just ensures that when we go to the next stage, we're able to ensure that the row number is being passed and validated so we don't accidentally try to override and update a row with data that was the wrong one, right? Say we target Jennifer here, and for some reason it ends up inputting Paris data on the row where Jennifer is. So then you end up importing it and says, hi, Paris, instead of hi, Jennifer, right? And we don't want that, right? We want this to actually go to the right people. And this is just a duplication of that for cross-checking. And so from there, we then search to validate, reiterate these things, right? And then if the contact's not in lim list, right, which is just using that filter of in lim list, or if this filter is equal to 0, contact name, the unique identifier of the business, company name, and this in lim list equals to true, we then get this output, which is called 0. And then what are we looking at here? Well, what that means is if when this filter is ran, we get the total number of bundles at 1, that means it exists, which is like this vector is true. So we're looking for false answers. So we want it to equal 0. So when it equals 0, that means, hey, we don't have all of this person's unique information yet, or we don't have the enrichment. We want to go through and add our personalization. So what does that then give us the ability to do? Well, what we then do is we go, great, that person needs personalization. We're going to go and get their website details. And so that's as simple. Let me just show you an example. Let's just say PS ringgears.com. Save, run this module only. When you run this, you get this super long data string, which is just all of the code from the website, right? So if we take all of this here has a lot of really good information, but it's really long. It's a lot of data. So how do we clean it up, right? But we need this because we want to make sure that when we create a personalized piece to this, that it's actually good. So what are we doing here? We're going to do this, and you go all the way to the top. I need to close this bracket out. We're going to hit save. We're going to run this module only. So what this one does, this is the text parser. So basically it goes through and gets out all the junk, all the fancy HTML, and it does the cleaner version. You see that? Look at that. We can actually read what the heck this is, right? That's so much better. And so then we use this set multiple variables tool. We hit add module. If you wanted to see how to do this, it's just set multiple variables. Cancel this. Delete this real quick. And we do the following. And I'm going to show you this in a sec. But we just re-pull the lim list ID. We're then getting the first name from the email just to make sure that we've got it here. And then we're doing the following. But essentially what we're doing here is we're going through and trying to get rid of any markdown or unique formatting that would go into play when we do text parsing, so that we can try to reduce the amount of total characters that we're going to be pushing into OpenAI to minimize how much we're spending on each icebreaker build out. And the importance of that is because some websites are really big, they're really chunky, and we don't want to have to pass all of that through. It's just not needed for the types of personalization that we're doing. The personalization that we're going to go into here is personalized icebreakers. So that way, when we go and communicate with someone, our first line or two is personalized to that individual person, their business, their information, and what we know about them and the company, right? And so we don't need to pass in 20 books worth of info. We just need a handful of paragraphs. And so that's exactly what this helps us with. So we need to pause. I've had to put this in play so that way we minimize the speed. And this, frankly, because we've made it so it's so fast that it actually breaks the token limit with this automation. So what happens here is then we move over to this icebreaker. And this is sort of the nice, really cool piece. Again, you're going to get access to all of this. And how this works is we have a OpenAI request here. This is like your personalization about who you are, what you do. And then this is us telling the assistant what it's supposed to do, right? Hey, your job is to write a short, friendly, relevant icebreakers that feel personalized to the prospect based on their business name, industry, homepage content. Goal is to sound human, helpful, and curious, not salesy or robotic. Keep each message under 50 words and end with figured I'd reach out. I added this because I've seen really good results with adding in figured I'd reach out with a transitional statement right into something else. So in here, what we've done is we've gone in here and say, here, give it some context, some clarity. This is from us. We're doing a user input. So that's like when you talk to ChatGPT and you input your information, like, hey, help me write this article, or hey, help me fix this email. And then we're giving an example. And then we also reiterate on what we said up here about figured I'd reach out. Then we're going through and doing another example where we're training it. We're giving it some general inputs like, hey, here's the information I'm going to give you. Here's the expected kind of output that I'm looking for you to give me, right? And we're doing this, as you see here, it's got these fancy brackets. We're doing it in JSON. Again, this consistency is important. Consistency breeds clarity. And clarity makes things easier, right? And so that's exactly what this does. So it's saying, hey, website text equals the following. Company industry equals industry. Location equals city, state, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then we go through and do the same thing a handful of times. So we want to give it multiple iterations of what this should look like. And we're just consistently training it on inputs and outputs and inputs and outputs. And then when we're ready, we go through and do the following. Now we say, hey, you've seen it enough. Do it for real. So here's it is. We're saying, here's your full name, the first name, our company, our website, so on and so forth. And so all the way through, you're then getting the parsed inputs and outputs. And then I'm going to have you provide a customized icebreaker based on this. Once that's done, you then are going to run and get something like this. That is super zoomed out. We're going to zoom this in. It's like, hey Jude, StepUp's mission to provide supportive housing is truly impactful. A clean and safe environment clean and safe environment complements your supportive services. Figured I'd reach out. Transitional statement, soft and direct pitch about what we do, how we do it, and how we help. So it's like, hey Rachel, right? And then we have the same thing, right? So now it's the clean version. It's not the fancy coded version. This one gives us the clean output. It's very simple. It's just looking at the output that we got, which is under choices, message, and content, right? So that gives us the JSON. This gives us the cleaned output of that JSON. And then this one here are Google Sheets where we go and update a row. I want you to look for this row number. And then I need you to go all the way down and just add in the few following details, which is I want you to add in the raw version of the icebreaker in JSON, and I want you to add in the clean version where there's no JSON. And then finally, I want you to mark that, hey, this contact has been pushed into Limlist. And then I need you to go through to the final step of this process where it's add lead in to Limlist. So all we do is we come in here, we hit add module, we come to Limlist, add lead in campaign. Now we went through and added these custom fields. Honestly, you probably don't need them. I would argue that you can get away by just making sure you're passing the Limlist campaign ID, which is pulled from us having logged this data. Again, that's why we want to use that. So now we are able to pass and pull this log, push the data into the campaign ID, and then from everything else that's already in this automation, we're able to pull the contact's email, pull from their name, right here. We're then able to try to clean up and capture the few instances where last name is after the dot, because like some companies do Cole dot Riggs or K dot Riggs, and so you're able to get first name and last name and so on and so forth. And so we want to make sure we pass in company name, phone number if we got it, their company domain name, and of course, icebreaker. So you want to pass in, I will say, if you're using Limlist, you want to pass in the parsed version, not the JSON. Instantly would use the JSON. And so it would want to use the JSON because it will format things a little bit differently, and that just keeps it cleaner. In here, I've also added the module to say, hey, yes, deduplicate. If you can find it, enrich it. If you can find the phone number, great, add it in. Because the team that is currently using this type of system, or many teams that are using this system, are by and large following up emails with a ton of cold calling. So once you have all of this, right, and you have these things running, what you'll end up finding is that your leads are getting pushed into your campaigns, right? And then you'll find this little section that says launch, which is great. And then we're just going to hit launch leads. And yes, launch campaign for these leads. And boom, they have been added into our campaign and they'll be getting sent information as we progress. And so I honestly love this setup. If you want to use Limlist, just go through the basic setup. But honestly, they walk you through it very, very well. But once you're in here, you'll hit create a new campaign. You'll set up the campaign itself. How I would do it is probably start with your email. In here, you can put in, whatever you want. And then here in your content, you're going to take add personalization. You're going to pull in icebreaker. And remember, icebreaker, because we did the personalization over here, is going to give you like your first whole intro. So you don't need to go, hi, first name, blank, 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 blank. You're going to use icebreaker. And the icebreaker is going to do all of the initial stuff. What's even cooler is if you really wanted, you could just duplicate that and do the same thing for your subject lines. But we found that you could just do something more simple like, hey, personalization, first name. Oh yeah, right here. Personalization, first name, Q. Q actually does really well. Q or question or question mark. Like, and the amount of open rates that your open rate that you actually get with these is actually really good because you can go from there to first name and then to your icebreaker, and then it can lead really well into what it is that you're trying to push. So keep an eye on that. Try that out. I highly recommend following some type of similar setup as the following if you're just getting yourself started, which is literally send a bunch of emails. Email 1, 2, create a task, 3, 4, wait until email has been opened. If opened, create another follow-up call task. Yes, it's a lot of emails. Yes, it's a lot of phone calls, but I think it does an amazing job of helping to ensure that you actually get people to open shit up, people to respond, and it increases your chances of getting them on a call with you, if we're being honest. So if that's what you're looking for, you probably want to try this out. If you want more details or context, or if you need me to dive into things a little bit deeper, I wanted to try a version where I sort of just go over how things are done and what they're doing, because I feel that a lot of you are going to be downloading our modules and you're just going to want to go and embed it into your own ecosystem and just sort of taking what we've already got and maybe using those tools. So the build out is so straightforward at this point. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. Happy to help and happy to give you more context and clarity. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you guys in another video. At this point, you've got everything because you got the automation, you've got the workflow, you've got the Chrome extension that now pushes data into this. All of this is done automatically, and the only thing you got to do is go to the campaign that you've created and make sure that the leads have been pushed and set to launch. Other than that, you are up and running and doing your thing. Launch your 12 leads, launch your campaign, and then you go from there. Well, sweet. I'll talk to you guys later on. I'll talk to you later.